first play of my senior year, I broke my leg. Coaching is not taking time to enjoy winning.
And they're going to say, what were we thinking?
When we first got there, we had 18 in summer school. But they did not know how to throw a football.
They're going to sit down at the table with their wife if they haven't skipped out on her already.
People literally going broke. We didn't allow our coaches to use profanity. I wanted a stadium named after me.
When I played, it was community.
We went 0-10.
So you realize that's 40 years ago, and you're still talking about it.
And things that we used to do called a walk and talk. It is about relationship. It is 100% about relationship. We've got it wrong.
It's a third down and goal. It's an Overilla touchdown.
It was so much fun and such an honor for me to interview Coach Drew Noles. Drew has been a long-time high school football coach. I also coached basketball, football, basketball, baseball, and tennis. And started his coaching career when he was 17 years old. He got hurt as a high school player and ended up in the press box for a few games and took up coaching from there. Was a head high school coach at age 26, coached for 23 years, won 159 games. But he probably doesn't know how many games he won. What was important to Coach Noles is developing young men. You're going to be interested to hear some things he has to say about the direction high school football has taken recently. And you're going to love the story he tells about his dad, who never missed one of his games when he was a player nor a coach. And the story he tells about his dad at the last game when Drew retired, his dad came on the field. You got to hear that story, but the quote that I want you to take away is this. When he's talking about his dad, he says, "It's nice when you don't have to leave home to find a hero." That would be my dream for every young man, that he didn't have to leave home to find a hero. That's what happened to Coach Noles, and I hope you enjoy hearing his story.
Welcome back to the That's My Dad podcast, Season 2. Football coaches. Excited about this thing, Colin. So we got a great football coach here, Drew Noles, in the studio with us. Drew, welcome. Appreciate you coming in, man.
Well, thanks for having us. It's exciting to be here.
Tell me, let's talk football. We all like football. Obviously, we got the old Rydell. Drew and I were talking back in my day. We call that the Rydell tackling method. You targeted and speared everybody you could back in those days. So we got the studio all decked out in football stuff. You're a football coach, retired now, but take us back and let's talk about how you got interested in football. We'll go way back for us. A lot of people will be interested in that.
Well, as far as how I got interested in coaching football, there was a gentleman named John Beck, and John was the head football coach at Boaz, and I was in youth baseball league, and in those days, a lot of the football coaches and I was at Boaz, and a lot of the coaches would work for the city during the summertime, keeping the youth baseball fields up, and John Beck would umpire. And I was amazed at the impact he had. He knew who the kids were, and I know what he was umpiring, but he was really recruiting, I think, because he was kind of seeing who was up and coming. But I remember just as being a little a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid, John Beck impacted me on how we all loved him, and the fact that he knew our name was important. And so that had a big impact on me. I loved athletics all my life. It was a big part of our life. I wasn't very good at it, but I enjoyed playing the game, and I loved competing, and I still do. I still love that part of games, and I am retired as a coach, but I still get to be a part through some job opportunities we have now to still be around the game, and I love football. Teaches a lot of lessons.
So you kind of picked that up from a guy working at Parks and Recreation when you were a kid, I take it.
Well, he was the head coach, but he was the umpire in the summertime.
Those guys,
and,
yeah. I remember our head coach mowing the grass. I don't think they do that anymore. I don't know.
Oh, I did. They did until I got finished. We were still cutting grass. And that's the thing people don't get about coaches is, if there's the X's and O's part of it, but they're also the custodian. They're the guy that they take care of the stadium. They got to mow the field. They got to mow the practice field. They got to wash the clothes. there's so much more that goes to it than just being a football coach. And I think we're losing that with some of our younger generation coaches, in that there are more of them that just coach ball, whereas maybe the older, and I'm sure there's some younger ones also, but there was just so much more to it than just the ball side of it, the football side of it.
You got to be you're a father figure too, and that's that's kind of part of what we're about. We'll get there in a minute. Kind of tell us at what point did you get involved? Did you play high school ball? You played Pee-wee?
No, I played as far as football. I started in middle school.
Okay.
And then I played 3 sports all the way through high school. Was able to play college baseball at Snead State. Loved Snead State. Played over there a little bit. Finished school at Jacksonville State. But the whole time I was in college, actually, the first play of my senior year, I broke my leg. Played 6 seconds. And it probably one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. At that time, I didn't see it, but my coaches were so great about allowing me to still be a part of the team. And I sat in on some meetings, and I started seeing the game from the coaches' side of it. And I would sit in, and I began to watch film with them even as a senior in high school. They could trust me to not go tell the team, everything they were talking about. Yeah. And then I was able to come back and play, I think, the last 4 games my senior year. But that was real important to me as far as being able to see some of what else goes into this more than just we see them at practice. But it took 2.5, 3 hours to get a schedule made out for practice, or all the other things that went into it. And so that same staff, the year I graduated, I was still a senior when I started coaching. I coached junior high football my senior year of spring training.
Really?
And then the 2 years I was at Snead, I was a junior high football coach at Boaz. So I was able to do play baseball, but also coach junior high football. And I coached junior high basketball those years also. And then when I went to Jacksonville State, I was able to coach all 3 sports because I drove back and forth. So I coached 4 years and had a pretty good resume as far as experience coming out. I had 4 years of coaching basketball, 2 years of baseball, and 4 years of football. And I was actually a defense coordinator my senior year of college. And
really?
So it was those coaches allowed me to grow my senior year. Again, it started with John Beck way back when I was just a child, and seeing the impact coaches had, and then was really being able to be mentored through those college years. And then slowly gave me more responsibility. And then at the age of 26 was the head football coach at Boaz.
You moved up fast.
Moved up pretty fast. Sometimes I think too fast, honestly. And I really believe in gaining wisdom. And toward the end of my career, I look back at the early Coach Noles, and I think, man, that guy didn't know a whole lot. Yeah. And you do get better as you get older, because you learn how to deal with things and situations with a little more tact and just handling things with more wisdom.
So how many years did you coach?
So counting those 4 years, I coached 32 years.
32 years.
And 28 years I taught, and or was working in administration.
So you were pretty successful. Tell us about some of your on-the-field success, wins and loss kind of stuff.
We won some games. I don't know. I think we were around 160 wins. But the problem that I probably had in coaching is not taking time to enjoy winning. I can't remember ever coming off field after a win and not being concerned about next week's opponent. I already knew what the next week's opponent had done before that game was over or before I walked off the field. But now I'd beat myself up after a loss. We did have some success on the field. We loved our time at Boaz. We were able to win, I think, more games than anybody there has. But we had great staff. We had good players, and we came through at a good time. And so and none of that credit goes to me. It goes to a superintendent that gave me an opportunity, great administration all the way through that supported us, and even through the lean years. And then the community that bought into what we were trying to do. And then we went to Etowah and loved our time there. We were able to stay there 6 years and actually retired from Etowah. Won a lot of games, won a couple of region championships. We had some tremendous athletes there. But I think the thing I'm most proud of there was in my 4th year, 6 6 of the top 10 in the academics were football players that year. And when we first got there, we had 18 in summer school. And from that year on, we didn't have another kid in summer school. And so those were things that I took most pride in, was the off the field and the character development that we saw from the time that we arrived. And then once we did retire from public schools, we were able to take a great job at Westbrook Christians. It's just a great place, and we coached there for 4 years, and just truly loved our time there. Loved the people there, and that's a program that is going to be heard from a lot in the next several years. And there were 3 things that we always taught with our team every year. But before, the last thing I told our team first was play with class. We always want to play with class. Secondly was no matter what happens, keep playing. If they run the opening kickoff back, we got to keep playing. If we run the opening kickoff back, to keep playing. And thirdly, the third thing we always said would be better when the competition was over than when it began. And then we would say a prayer and then we'd go play. That was about all the motivating I did. I didn't try to pump the team up, especially as I got older. It was about, let's do these 3. And the thing about those 3 things, that was never about football. That was about how you live your life. You live with class. You got to keep playing when bad things happen. You got to keep living. You don't get to call. You don't get to redo. You got to keep living. And when things are going good, you still stick to the game plan. There's a plan that you have. The Bible, God's given us a plan. Let's stick to the plan, whether it's good or bad. Stick to the plan and stick to what's constant. He's constant in our life. There can be adjustments, but let's. And then thirdly, let's be better every day when we go to bed than we were when we got out of bed.
Do you think you guys took that and translated it into life beyond football?
There's no doubt they did. We talked a lot about it, and especially as the season would come to an end, we always made a big deal about, these are 3 things. But they heard, if they played for us for 4 years, they heard that for over 40 times. And there's no one telling how many times they heard it throughout the off season. It was repetitive, but you don't go to the weight room and work out one day and get better at it, get stronger. Right. And so it is what we said every year as head coach for 23, every game for 23 years. There was times that there was motivational factors that you could use, but I was never a rah-rah guy. I didn't want our team to be a rah-rah team. We were boring to watch. We knew we were boring to watch. We understood what we were. We had a T-shirt made one year. My favorite T-shirt we ever had was "We're little but we're slow," and so that doesn't seem very motivational. But we understood we weren't fast, and we understood we weren't strong, and we understood we weren't big. But here's what we are, and let's be this. And if we can be the best us, that's all we can be. And that team won 8 games. And had a chance to be undefeated on the season.
So there's a saying that says that your players don't care what you know until they know that you care. How did you go about letting your players know that you cared, not just about football, but about them as humans?
That was I pray that the people that played for us know that we cared for them way more off the field than we did on the field. The amount of lessons that we tried to teach them, the leadership roles we tried to put them in through things like the FCA Bowl, that was a flag football league where they ran that and were placed in leadership positions, and things that we used to do called a walk and talk, where I picked one player a day and we just did a 100-yard walk. Let's just talk, not about football. And typically the question is, 10 years from now, where you at? And I know that's not proper English, but what are you doing in 10 years?
So let me back up, make sure I understand. You took each individual player and walked with them 100 yards.
I tried to take a player every day and I called it a walk and talk. Now I didn't tell them it was a walk and talk. I knew what it was, but during practice we were going to take a player. I was going to take a player a day and do a walk and talk. And I want to know what you got going on.
So it wasn't about football.
We didn't talk about football. The thing that I struggle with in today's society is there's so much emphasis on the scoreboard. That guy's playing football for 4 years. He's a person the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And are we teaching lessons that are going to pertain for these 4 years and be of no use to you anymore? you're going to be from 18 to however old, you're going to be a person. You're always going to be a person. How do you use what lessons you learn in victory and defeat, more so probably in defeat, to become a better person? In today's transfer portal world that we live in, where everybody's looking for the grass is greener and it's better over here, you got to be at this school to get recruited, that's false. That's not true. And we're hearing those words, and we've lost completely, especially at the high school level, playing for community. We've lost. We got beat last night, but we can learn from this. And we've lost loyalty. And what we're going to see in the near future is people being less husbands than they should be. The transfer portal is going to continue into family. It's going to continue into fatherhood. And when things get tough, you bail, because that's what you did in high school. And so we're going to continue to see that, and it's going to be a problem. And the thing is, nobody wants to talk about it. But it is an issue, and it needs to be talked about, and it's something that's very, very serious.
Yeah, I've thought about that myself. When you and I are probably close to the same age, when I played, it was community. And I played with a lot of really good athletes, and we did our fair share of recruiting, but it was getting the guys down the street from you.
Well, my 10th grade year, we went 0-10. And we went 0-10, not like we led for 0 plays on the season. Game 1, we got beat 45-0. Game 2, we got beat 55-0. We did run the opening kickoff back against Hansville High School, missed the extra point, so they scored on the next play. We led for 0 offensive plays or plays from scrimmage for the season. Actually, they ran the kickoff back. I thank God for that. And that sounds so bad. We never discussed moving. There wasn't a person on my team that transferred. We just worked. We tried to get better, and we did get better. I thank God for the coaches that God put in our life for that. It wasn't the coaches' fault that we went 0-10. We didn't have as good of players as the other team did. And I was one of those players. I'm not bashing anyone that we weren't. But in today's world, most of those players would have found somewhere else to go. And that same team would have struggled to ever get off the map, because everybody would have left.
Yeah, and that's trickled down from the college level into the high school level very quickly.
Into youth league, where we're true enough sitting, and where we have a whole generation of children. We've got it wrong. We've got a whole generation of kids grow up that you go to the ball field on Sunday morning and you go to church when you don't have ball. And we've got it, and then we wonder what's going on. Well, what's going on is we don't have fathers taking their families to church. They're taking them to a ball field. And again, not politically correct, probably make a lot of people mad, but it's just a fact. And we're doing that, and we're spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for a scholarship that may be 20%, because baseball only has 9.5 to 11 scholarships per team.
Yeah, there's some guy laughing his way to the bank.
There's no doubt, 100%.
And I think that the guys, when the kids are grown, I've said this 100 times, they're going to sit down at the table with their wife if they haven't skipped out on her already, and they're going to say, well, what were we thinking? Yeah. What were we thinking? We had this idea. Somebody whispered in their ear that their kid was going to be a star with Disney, or that they were going to be a professional baseball player, or that it's always your kid's got potential.
But as far as the biggest thing, how do people always say, how you get your kids to play so hard? Just love them, care for them, and know that it's more than just this game. And don't just love them when it's good. Like, just love them, and then teach lessons through how do you handle success. I think that's harder than handling adversity. How do you handle success, but also handling the adversity, and how do we circle these wagons when everybody's kind of piling up on us? How do we handle that? So
I know one of the things you did, because I was a director of a children's home, a boys' ranch, and you were the coach at the school where they went, and you took my guys actually home with you. They actually came and lived with you. How common is that among coaches, and why is that important? We had a couple of guys that there was no father figure in their life, and you stepped up and we were able to do some. Tell me about that.
We were able to do some resource work. We had done that a little bit when we were at Boaz, where we'd have a student occasionally that would be needing some help, but we loved doing resource there. And we also did that with Big Oak Ranch, which was great opportunities, Eagle Rock and Big Oak Ranch. And
why does a coach do that?
I don't know if it's chosen. It was a calling for us. It was just an opportunity to help. And so I'm sure it happens a lot with coaches, but we were blessed. We had opportunity to do it. We had extra room, and it was something that we felt like to be able to impact somebody and bless them in a way. My wife was 100% in with that, and to be able to see what his family looked like. What can it look like? There is better out there.
To build a model. Let's talk about that too, in terms of fatherless kids that you coached who didn't have a dad. What is the difference? Can you pick those kids out of a crowd, the kid that had a dad versus the one who doesn't?
I would say more so, not just the dad. Those that had two-parent homes were so different than the ones that lived in a one-parent home. And it wasn't that it was always it was you're talking about as a one-parent home, a single-parent home. It wasn't always just discipline. It was just getting all their children to all the different activities they had to get them to, and having to be more flexible with that sometimes as a coach. For us, the number of kids that we used to call it the bus route, where we just have to go pick kids up, and then the number of kids that would spend the night. But thankfully, Andy and Will played for us when we at Etowah. But the number of kids that would come spend the night with them, so they get to practice the next day or the next morning. But yeah, there's obviously when you start thinking about two incomes versus one income, you're going to see some poverty or lack of prosperity if there's only the one income. That could be a thing. And then there's just the discipline. Boys need a father. They need a mother. There's a role for both of them. And when there's not both of those aspects, then there's definitely a void. And I've seen some mothers that do a tremendous job, but they're still not the father. And there's things that a father can teach that if I had a daughter, there's no way I could teach her things my wife can teach her. I've not experienced it. I don't know that. I don't understand it. I love her, but I don't understand the things that she's going through because I'm not a girl. I'm not female.
So what do you say to our society that's telling us that men are really not needed?
No, I'd say that's completely right. I used to say, a lot of people, they would say they want their kid to grow up to be a pro athlete or a pro this or I always said all I wanted my two boys to grow up to be or to be when they grew up was to be a man. Just be a man. And we used to have a thing in our dressing room, be a man. What is a man? It's a man. It's a person that provides for the family. It's a person that goes to work. It's a person that disciplines. He's the leader of the household. There has to be that. And we're struggling in today's world to determine what is a man. And it's biblical. Bible tells us what a man's supposed to be.
Yeah, but you can't say that. You're going to get in trouble with this one because there's a culture out there that's telling us that men and women.
And we're letting the 1% dictate what the 99% think, or that even if it's the minority is controlling things right now, and that's a problem that we have. And we have people that are sitting around on their hands and not being willing to speak out. And as a coach, we're role models, whether we want to be or not. We're a role model. And those kids, there are so many kids that the only father figure that many of them have is their coach.
Right.
And it's sad, but it's true. And I think that was one of the things as a coach that I had some of the best staffs. We were so fortunate. But there were so many times I loved referees. I was one of the weirdos as coaches that I appreciate referees. Without them, we wouldn't have had the game. But it's still at the same time, I didn't agree with all the calls they made. And there were times that I wanted to rant and rave and throw my hands and spit and just go crazy and use profanity but I always told our coaches, when you're disciplining a kid, you discipline with your back to the stadium, to the stands. You keep your arms crossed. Don't go flailing your arms. Don't curse. Don't be loud. Coach the kid. One of the things we always talked about, we didn't allow our coaches use profanity.
Really?
we taught that as a sign of weakness.
Really?
And we didn't allow our coaches to use profanity because we weren't going to allow our students to use profanity. And people say, you can't make a bunch of kids not curse. I'm not naive enough to say the kids weren't cursing. I didn't hear it. And if we did hear it, they had a lap for every letter that it was in the word. And they just go ahead and do it. And so, but again, we would tell our coaches, if we expect our kids to do that, but yet we're going to use profanity, that's terrible. Mm-hmm. That we're going to be the father figure and we're going to teach them that there's a right and a wrong way to do stuff, then we got to display that ourselves.
Yeah, I've often wondered, why is it that a coach can get in a press conference and if he lets a 4-letter word slip in a press conference, he apologizes, but we know good and well he's just dog cussing every day as players, and that's kind of accepted. Has that got anything to do with winning as a culture? Are we willing to accept that we'll let a few things slide as long as they win?
100%. I think sometimes somebody say if he was 2-0 or if he was 6-0, would he have gotten in the same would he be getting in the same heat as he got if he was 3-3 or 0-6 or if he'd have won last year, would that even been a thing? And there's no doubt the scoreboard has become the tell-all for everything, and there's all coaches that are doing it the right way understand the scoreboard is not the ultimate. It really isn't. And as I'm not coaching this year, there's so much that I've seen just in the 1 year, not even a full year of not being in education, of seeing that even more now that I'm away from it and understanding there's such the importance. And as I've been able to go around to different schools and see practice and just see there is so much. It is about relationship. It is 100% about relationship. And to those kids, are they hearing what you're saying? Do they know that you love them? Do they know that you care about them? And not just because you're playing ball for them, but you care about them. And that if you call that coach 20 years down the road, he still cares about you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very, very important. You coach them 4 years of football. You're coaching them for life. How are they a better father from playing for you? How are they going to be a better husband from playing for you? Are they learning anything about life from playing ball? Because how silly, honestly, is it to go catch 500 ground balls? I mean, and I'm a coach, so I'm saying this, and I told my teams this all the time. You can't justify going to catch 500 ground balls that you might catch 4 all year, and you catch 500 a day. Or you might swing 100 times a day, and you might play a baseball game and get walked 3 times. You can't justify working out for 10 football. Think about you're going to play 10 football games, but you're going to work out all year for those 10 football games. There's no way to justify that. It doesn't make sense, except for we're learning you got to go to work when you don't feel like. There's so many lessons that are taught through games and through activity and athletics or extracurricular activities of any kind that are more than the game. The game's just 10 days.
It's a byproduct.
And it's not even 10 days. It's 2.5 hours for 10 days. You're talking about 20 hours of competition. You're going to work out 300 days for 20 hours? That doesn't make sense. But if you start looking at all the lessons that are taught through that, then you can justify it. And if the lessons are only about game 1, then the coach has failed. If all the work that we do is only for those 25 to 30 hours of competition, we're fools. We're really fools.
That's a good point.
And so there's so much more to it than that.
What do you say to the kid that's growing up out there? Just a word of advice or encouragement to the kid. You've had a lot of them who didn't have a dad at home. What do you say to them?
To the kid that doesn't have a dad.
Does not have a dad or father deficient home.
I think the more they can be involved in extracurricular is going to be helpful. Find a male role model. Get involved in organizations at your school that allow you to grow in your faith, that allow you to grow in the different parts of your life. I mean, there is so much maturity that takes place, and especially where we had them in the when we'd see them in 9th grade or 12th grade. There's so many opportunities for growth in all parts of their life, and to plug in. But you got to keep going, and you got to get them to see past today. It's so hard for them to see past today, and then they want to use what they're in as a crutch or an excuse for what life's going to be. There can be a better day ahead, but the only one that can change the generational or cycle that you're in is you. And you got to realize what that cycle is. Write it down. We used to do that in our class all the time. What cycle are you in? Maybe a great cycle. Well, let's keep that one going. But if it's one that you're not real proud of, do something about it, or else you're going to be in it the same thing, because it is a cycle, and it's generational. It's passed from one, and it's proven that people that are abused generally abuse their children. People that are children of drug addicts generally become drug addicts. Alcoholics' children, you generally become alcoholics, because that's what they are. It's what they see. So let's see it, but then let's break the cycle. And it's okay. Let's talk about it too. And that's where the walk and talk was such a big deal for us. Again, I can't tell you. I truly can't tell you how many times I didn't even go on the practice field. Again, some of the best coaching staffs in the world coached for us. But there were times I didn't even go on the field. I just sat in there and listened to a kid the whole practice.
Really?
And we had a practice organized. Our coaches could coach, and I'd sit in there and let's just talk. And I'd let them just cry on me, talk with me, and just listen. And there's people there that'll listen.
What'd you do senior night? You did something special.
We senior night was something. There's some nights that coaches hate. Homecoming is a hated night. Senior night can be distraction. So we just decided to take that distraction to a whole other level. We did this way back when we were at Boaz. We probably did this for 20 years, I guess. So the first thing that we did was we called it sit around the logo. And so our team would just sit around the logo. They weren't allowed to touch the logo, and they just shared stories and the seniors were all that could talk. And it was a big deal. It became a great tradition. And then second thing that we always did on senior night was before the game we called it father figure. And we allowed the father figures to come into our dressing room. And we would meet them before they got in there. And it was always special for us. My dad would come be a part of this also, and I love that. And I would tell the dads before they go in, just be with your kid. They fixed to go play a football game. It's the last game they're ever going to play on this field. Just go be with them. And don't talk about football. Just tell them you're proud of them. And that was one of probably the most impactful things that we probably ever did. And we would bring those dads. But before we go out, I said, look, and it's easy for you that if your kid doesn't play to feel like you don't belong here. You are actually the one we want in here. That kid you should be so proud. He hasn't played much all year, and he stuck it out. I mean, that's tough. It's hard to practice every day and come and then show up and still keep coming. You be proud of your kid. And I don't think we tell our kids we're proud of them enough. And then they would stay with us through our prayer, and then they would form a line as we would go out, and they would just high five every kid as they came out. The different groups. It was special. And then at the end of the night, I mean, we just made senior night a big deal, but we called it Hero Night, and we wanted we always want to put our players in leadership positions. And for them to understand the impact and the role models they were to the elementary kids in our school. And that's why acting a fool was impactful, or not acting a fool was impactful. Let's act like, when we say we're going to honor and glorify God, we're going to honor and glorify God in how we do things, because that's going to impact the next generation of people. And so we would ask, it didn't matter what the score was, there wasn't a kid going to leave on the last home game, because they were allowed to come out on the field, and our players would always have bracelets or gloves. Some of them would give them their cleats. Some of them would give them, they would wear a necklace out there. There was years that we had old jerseys that we needed to get rid of, and we would give those away. And then the last year at Westbrook, we had 50 helmets that were out of date. We couldn't use them anymore. We gave those away. And they would just come up with different ways just to see, and it was so important for our guys to understand, I am really I can use this platform for a good thing. That's what we really wanted our guys to understand. This is a platform that most of us will never have this big of a platform the rest of your life. that the community's talking about it for a week in advance. They're going to talk about it all day tomorrow. How do we respond, and how do we react to what happened? I wanted for a long time. I wanted to be in the Alabama High School Hall of Fame. I'll just be honest with you. I wanted my name. I wanted a stadium named after me. I really did. That's selfish, but that's what I wanted. And the older I got, and especially toward the end, that didn't make one hill of beans to me. I couldn't care less about those things more than I just wanted to pour into the kids. And how impactful can we be on these kids? And I guess if there's anything that I miss of coaching, it is the sit around the logo. It is the FCA Bowl where we did flag football and we would just mentor kids. It is the hero nights. It is bringing the fathers into the dressing room. It is my dad waiting on me at the gate. Even still, he didn't miss any games and being proud of me.
Your dad, even when you were a head coach,
he didn't miss a game.
Didn't miss a game.
And he asked me, I'll never forget, the last game. I knew last year was my last year, and so I'd met with my wife and both my boys, and I told them, and I told my mom and dad. And my dad asked me, I'll never forget, he began to cry. And I'm thankful my dad was never afraid to cry. And he began to cry, and we had still not left the field. And it was a weird feeling because I knew all year everything I did was my last. And my dad looked at me and said, what in the world am I going to do on Friday nights? Because I've been playing since 88. I've coached through 2023. He ain't missed a game since 19. And my sister was in the band since 85. So from 1985 to 2023, he ain't missed a Friday night. Wow. And so he began to cry. He said, what am I going to do on Friday nights? And so that was something that was tough, but it was time. My dad worked for a bread company, and he'd have to get up about 1:30, 2 o'clock every morning. He never missed anything any of us children were doing. There was a lot of nights that my dad didn't go to sleep after a competition. We'd have a football game, and he'd just stay awake all night and go to work the next day. But the things that I remember about my dad, well, one, he's my hero. And I think that's important, like that you can stay within the house to find your hero. He is my hero still. I still don't want to disappoint my dad. And my dad kept me out of more trouble in that when I was tempted and when I had opportunities to do stupid things, which I had many opportunities, I used to ask myself, if my dad were here, would I do this? Or if my dad finds out about this, is he going to be disappointed? And I would actually ask myself that all the time. Even I can remember being a little kid, I didn't want my dad disappointed in me. And I disappointed him, I'm sure, many a time. But he is a man's man. He's the most humble person I've ever known. He disciplined us, and I'm thankful for that. He and my mom, they disciplined us. But we grew up in an era of sandlot baseball. We grew up in an era of riding your bicycle all over town, and I miss those. I loved those days. But what I loved about my dad, he'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he didn't get home till 5:30 or 6 in the evening. Now, it was a long, long day, and me and my brother were always in the yard. We didn't stay. We'd get off the bus. We was going to be in the yard playing some kind of ball, and we'd say, Dad, come, let's play ball. And, boys, I'm too tired. And he was, and we knew he was. He'd go in the house, and it wouldn't be 10 minutes later, here he'd come. and I thought my dad could throw the highest fly ball in the world. But then the times he took us fishing and taught us how to do things, and he sacrificed a whole lot for us. There's no doubt. But man, he is still he is a hero. Like I said, he's an humble guy, but he's a man's man, and I'm thankful for that.
Tell me, and we have a little surprise for you after this, but tell me, what do you think you would want your legacy as a coach to be?
That's a pretty tough one. I hope that the people that I coached, again, know that we loved them. I hope they know that we'll help them. Even though they don't play for us anymore, that we still would help them. And I would hope that anybody involved us, whether it be a opponent, somebody that coached with us, somebody in the stands, somebody whose kids play for us, that we tried to do it the right way and do it with class. And we truly did. There was never a decision that we made that we didn't pray about or we didn't think was the best. It wasn't always the best decision, but at the time we thought it was the best decision. And those were some tough things, but I hope that we were able to make some kind of positive impact on kids. And I will say this, even one of the hardest things I ever did was coaching my own kids. And I got to coach them for 8 years. But what a blessing that was too.
How is that different?
Well, I always told them they had to be way better to play, because if they weren't, everybody was going to say, you're playing because your dad's the coach. And I was probably too hard on them sometimes, in that I didn't want any player on our team to think they were getting any special treatment. And thank God that they were good players. Andy was an all-state wide receiver, and Will was an all-American in baseball and was a really, really good football player, and they were three-sport athletes up to a certain point. But, man, I wouldn't give anything in the world for coaching those two. They were fun to coach. It was fun times. It was hard times. It was really hard not taking it home sometimes, I'll be honest with you. But my wife was a good mediator. And she's way better than me. And I would say this, and as we close out, there's not a good coach out there that doesn't have a great wife.
Yeah.
Because, boy, you got to have some support. And there's sometimes she's the only one that supports you, that you feel like anyway.
That's got to be tough.
She hears more in the bleachers than you'll ever hear from the field.
Well, today was the first day I was able to really hang out with you. You coached some of my kids, but we did a little background check, a little reference check, and I would share with you what we found out when we asked the people around you, because we don't want to bring guys in here who are not the real deal.
Yeah.
We want to bring guys in here who are the real deal on the field and off the field, and you're one of those guys, and that's evidenced by a couple of little testimonies we gathered. I would share those with you and let you comment if you want to.
Hey, Coach Noles.
Great player.
A short video to explain how you've impacted my life just isn't enough, but I'm going to give you my best effort.
He always did that.
How you is much more than just a football coach. You care for me, you care for my teammates just as much off the field as you did on the field. You always pushed us and strive for us to be godly men, husbands, fathers, and not just good football players. And one statement that you always taught us that stuck with me for the last 20 years is that I should always do the small things right. And if I do the small things right, if I would just do that, I could do the big things right and be successful. And I've carried that principle with me and applied it to my business, my family life. I've spoken it with my children, and most importantly, I've used it to grow in my faith. I could not have handpicked a better godly man or role model to play for, and I thank you for that. And anytime I hear your name, I'll make sure to tell what kind of impact you made in my life, and how the things you taught me still impacts me today. Thanks, Coach.
That's a good boy.
I had a couple more for you to respond.
I named my son after him.
What an honor it is
After
to be
his
able
boy.
to speak publicly about how much you mean to me, and what an unbelievable impact you've been in my life and so many other young men from all over. I had the privilege of being able to be one of your first groups to coach when you were straight out of college, and formed a special bond with you as a senior in high school, and got to be a part of some pretty cool state championship AAU teams, and got to go on some visits together, and we just formed a special bond that I'll always remember. And so I've been able to kind of see you grow throughout the years, from then in the early mid-90s all the way to now. Not only kind of the evolution as a coach, but more importantly, the evolution of the man that you are now, and really your stance that you made for God, and the importance that you have placed on sharing the gospel with the young men that you're around. And I've spent many times talking with you about it, and just so proud of the way that you have conducted yourself, and so proud that I was able to be a small part of that early on, and so thankful that I consider you a dear friend, a very close friend, a mentor, and someone that I look up to. And so I love you, Drew. I love you very much, and very thankful for you.
Hey y'all, Peyton Nance here. I had the pleasure of playing 4 years of football under Coach Noles at Etowah High School. And man, what a great coach, what a godly influence that he was on my life. The doors that he opened for me, the lessons he taught me, helped me grow in my faith. Just all the wonderful things he did for me and my teammates, and the culture change that he made in our high school and on the football field, in our locker room, and in each individual person as a whole. Man, we can't thank you enough, Coach. I appreciate you and I love you.
Hey, Coach Noles, this is Moose. I just wanted to sit down for a moment and thank you for everything that you've ever done for me and everybody else. You know, you're a true man of God, and you've really helped a lot of people, especially me. And I just want to thank you for that. For one, you've made me a better person than what I was. And, you know, just being around you and see you work and everything, it's truly a blessing to be around you. And I'm truly thankful. And I hope to see you soon. And just keep it up, because we really appreciate you. But love you, and have a good day, man.
My name is Tyler King. I've been asked to give this tribute to
Got to see
Coach
him
Drew
make
Noles,
fun of
who
me.
was my football coach.
He's the best
when I was
guy
in high
ever.
school.
He probably
But I've
will
also
right
kept
here.
a very close friendship with Coach, as I've led worship for many of his camps and revivals. The thing I can say about Coach Noles is that he brought the best out of everybody, his players, his kids, the people around him. And one thing that always stuck in my head that I've thought throughout my life whenever I go through something tough is how Coach always used to tell us, men, no matter what happens, just keep playing. Just keep playing. One thing about Coach Noles is you knew that he cared more about you as a person than he did as a player. He's an amazing person, a great father, a great role model for young men and people. And I thank God that he was a part of my life, and it was truly a blessing to me. And the biggest thing is he helps point people to Jesus Christ, where they have true hope that is found. Thank you, Drew, for all that you do. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, Dad. Just wanted to say thank you for being such a great dad and role model for both me and Will. Everything for always being at all of our games when we were kids, to teaching us what it means to be a man, and taking us to church so we can grow our faith. I'm thankful to have you for a dad and all that you've done for us. I love you, Dad.
Hey, Dad, just wanted to say thank you for everything. You know, being my coach and being a dad. Not only that, but just being an example I'm supposed to follow, being a great father, great husband, great coach. And not only that, but also keeping God first. You know, you've taught me so many lessons. Just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a Christian coach, not a coach that's a Christian. I know because of you, I'm a better man because of it. So just thank you again. I love you. Definitely wouldn't be the man I am without you.
Hey, Drew. I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you for being the person that you are. You are a great role model to lots of people, but you are especially a great husband to me. You are a great dad to our two children, and you are a great role model to many other people in the community. You are the true spiritual leader of our household, and no one can ever question that you put God first and family second. And we thank you for being who you are.
That's pretty good. Well, don't make me cry.
So the reason we do that, Drew, we could have gone on and on and on, but we had to cut some of them. And you left a legacy with those guys. The impact you had on those guys is far beyond what you knew. And so we just wanted to share that as our way of saying thank you for what you've done for our community and our culture, and mostly for those kids. One of those kids happens to be one of my own.
Yeah.
So thank you for the investment, and he is doing fantastic.
He looks good.
He's doing fantastic. He's an awesome kid. So you'd like to reply to that?
Well, that's a pretty good group of young men, and of course Michelle, like I said, she is the best ever. I outkick my coverage with her by a long way. I'm thankful for her, but we truly, I really cared so much more about them than as people than I did as a player. We never even made any bones about that. It was so much more, and so great group of young men there, and that we had opportunity to work with, and I actually named one of my children after Andy Turner, and my oldest son named Andy after Andy Turner. Such a great athlete, and but I'm proud of all those guys where they are now in their walks in their life.
Well, that's a tribute to you and the kind of guy you are. And if you're a coach out there watching, listening, this is what it's really all about. It's really not about the NIL deal.
No.
It's not about the scoreboard, although you gotta keep that in a good shape. It's really about the impact you make on lives, and that's why we did those. I mean, it's a lot of work to gather those tributes, but all those guys were eager to do that, and because they love you and they appreciate you. And if you're a coach out there, you just need to remember this is what it's all about. In the end, that's what matters.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank y'all for having us. It's been a good time.
Hey, we're just trying to inspire fathers to become great dads. We're trying to break cycles of generational fatherlessness. If you're a young man out there and you're struggling, don't have a dad, or you're in a father deficient home, there's a way you can make it. Find people like Coach Noles to mentor you, to be a part of your life, and you can turn things around. You can flip the script. Some of the guys that just gave testimony did that. So that'll conclude this episode of the That's My Dad podcast, where we're inspiring fathers to become great dads and breaking cycles of generational fatherlessness. See you next week.